Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Senator Lathrop and members of the Judiciary Committee. I am John Kuehn, John-Kuehn, and I'm here today representing Smart Purchase of Marijuana, Nebraska. Officially, we're in the position today of opposition to 1275 as it stands right now. I do want to be clear, up until just a few days ago, we were working in a good faith effort with the bill's introducer to attempt to find a path forward, to identify if there were options and opportunities legally to come to a compromise and identify a series of conditions in a restricted fashion which might provide some degree of access to the sickest of sick Nebraskans to medical marijuana. That said, at this point in time, without the bill just introduced copy, as well as uncertainty about the status of a number of the discussions we've had with the bill's introducers, we do formally oppose LB 1275 and ask that you not advance it. A couple of things that I do think need to be clarified because they continue to crop up, and they're technical terms and they're words that have meaning. And that is, again, it's important to remind the legislators, policymakers, that the term prescription does not apply when dealing with marijuana for medical use. There is no valid prescription. It's a certifying condition. Prescriptions have dosage, frequency, route, mechanism, and generally are time limited. And so understanding the marijuana system as one and utilizing words like prescription misrepresent a legal term which has legal meaning within the healthcare profession. The other issue which has come up a couple of times in today's hearing and also is referenced inadvertently or inaccurately in even the fiscal note for this bill is the concept that somehow there's a very special prohibition against the interstate sale and shipment of marijuana at the federal level. We must be clear, marijuana is still at the federal level illegal to grow, process, distribute, sell, dispense, possess. It is not merely a question of interstate shipment at which federal prohibition exists. Regardless of what the state of Nebraska may or may not do regarding legalization of marijuana within the state, it still remains federally illegal to grow, to produce, and to distribute. And that's an important distinction as we look at this very interesting gray area that marijuana exists on, whether it's states legalizing it in accordance with its federal status as well as its status as a Schedule I drug. With that, again, I was hoping we would be able to have something more positive and affirmative to discuss as a path forward for patients in Nebraska. At this time, we don't see that. But again, are always open to continuing to work forward and see if there's an opportunity to do so. With that, I'm happy to answer the questions that you may have.
Senator Cass.
Do you foresee the federal government taking that pathway of legalization?
I'm not in a position to be able to say what the federal government may or may not do. I think things when some of us took office 8 years ago together thought the federal government were going to do still don't seem to happen. So I guess I'm not in a position to see so. I do believe that there will be some changes at the federal level. I think momentum is going. I think for a state like Nebraska, I know there's been a lot of criticism about the grow, about the distribution factor of this bill, but I do think it recognizes something that the marijuana industry is a multi-state industry. Many of the businesses, even heard some today, where you have businesses involved in various aspects of commercial marijuana, whether it be production, testing, or others. These are multi-state industries, and in some cases are actually international, with business interests in Canada and throughout North America, as well as the United States. I think the reflection of that multi-state nature of commercialization of marijuana, and in some cases the international status, will continue to prompt changes at the federal level. But again, that's a federal issue, and to some degree, we can't just pick and choose which federal laws we're going to look at preemption and which ones we aren't. It's what's kind of created this interesting swirly of policy that puts states in the position that they're in now, and uncertainty. With a different patchwork of state regulations and rules and laws without clear, consistent federal guidance on the issue.
Thank you. So, to be clear, do you have a role in writing this bill?
I've spoken with a number of senators concerning things that were points of compromise, just so I had issues with points of compromise with senators when LE 474 was heard on the floor last year. So, contributing concepts, ideas, language has been something that, since my participation in Sam, Nebraska, has always been a part of what we've done.
Okay, and also, I kind of want to be clear, well, I kind of want to get some clarity from you. Your organization is Smart Approaches to Marijuana, but a part of your testimony was to say that it's illegal on the federal level. So how can we have smart approaches if your opposition is that it's illegal?
Okay, it's an interesting one. I didn't come up with the name, so we'll go with that. As far as, I think, looking at realistic policy approaches, there's an ideology, and I think what we've heard today from individuals is there are people with very strong feelings on both sides of the marijuana issue, whether that is strong emotion and perspective towards legalization to the point of full legalization and a lack of any government regulation or control. On the other hand, I've heard testimony from individuals who feel equally as passionate about full prohibition. I think we all recognize that the policy is rarely that black or white, and that when we're dealing with something as broad as the state of Nebraska and a policy as complex as the legalization of marijuana, that there is going to be a need for thoughtful and reasonable approaches to how we implement that policy. And although I'm here today in opposition to 1275, I think you've heard something that maybe hasn't come up in the last 8 or 9 years of hearings on this topic, and that is that nobody likes it, which some people will say is the sign of a good compromise, right? Not that this is perfect or is ready for a good policy at this point in time, but what I think you're hearing today is that there are individuals, groups, representatives of both sides of this, what can be fairly divisive issue, saying there's things in here we like and there's things in here we don't like. And that's ultimately where good policy and good public policy comes out. So in the face of not looking at in legalization, Sam looks at what is the best approach forward that protects the public health and safety of the people which are part of our organization.
Thank you.
You bet.
What's SAM stand for?
Smart approaches to marijuana.
Okay. That's the only question I had.
All right, hey, that's an easy one.